Welcome back, Wasteland Wanderers. Today, I'm bringing you one of the darkest secrets buried in the Fallout universe, a story about how paradise became prison and workers became weapons. This is the true story of the Sierra Madre's ghost people, the immortal workforce that Big Mountain created on purpose, and the construction worker who discovered too late that his protective equipment was really a cage he'd never escape. Let the confession begin. I remember the day I stopped being human, not the day I became whatever I am now, trapped inside this prison of metal and rubber that breathes for me, but the day I realized I was never meant to walk out of the Sierra Madre alive. My name used to be inscribed on the inside of this helmet. After 200 years, the corrosion has eaten it away. Sometimes I forget if I ever had a name at all, or if I was always just another test subject for Big Mountain. You probably think you know the story of the Sierra Madre, the casino that never opened, Frederick Sinclair's monument to lost love, the cloud that turned paradise into hell. But you don't know the real horror. You don't know that every ghost person wandering these streets was created on purpose. We weren't victims of bad luck or faulty equipment. We were the product. I was a construction worker, just a regular guy trying to make decent money on what everyone said would be the biggest resort project in the West. Sinclair was paying premium wages because he wanted the Sierra Madre finished before the bombs dropped. We all knew the war was coming. You could feel it in the air, see it in how the government was acting. Sinclair knew it too. That's why he was building this place, not just as a casino, but as a fortress, a shelter for the woman he loved. We started construction on the villa first. Beautiful place, or it would have been. Art Deco mixed with Mission Revival architecture. Streets designed so no cars could drive through, keeping everything quiet and pollution-free. Sinclair wanted it perfect. He wanted it safe. That's why he made the deal with Big Mountain. Big Mountain, or Big Empty as some folks called it. The think tank executives came to the construction site a few times. I remember them walking around in their expensive suits, pointing at things, taking notes. They had this way of looking at us workers like we were already dead. I should have paid attention to that look. At the time, I just thought they were typical corporate types, viewing labor as disposable. I didn't realize they meant it literally. If you could go back in time and warn yourself about a job that seemed too good to be true, would you take the risk anyway if you really needed the money? Drop your thoughts in the comments. The clouds started at Puesta del Sol, the switching station down in that residential section. I wasn't working that area initially, but word spread fast when guys started getting sick. 3 workers got hospitalized with severe lung and tissue damage. Weird thing was, they said the toxin wasn't being inhaled. It was being absorbed through their skin. Whatever this gas was, it didn't need your lungs to kill you. It seeped right through your pores. Construction stopped immediately. Sinclair got on the phone with the Big Mountain executives. I remember overhearing part of that conversation. He was panicked, asking them what the hell was leaking through his ventilation system, begging them for help. They told him they'd send protective equipment, hazmat suits, the prototype models from their testing facility. Those suits arrived within 24 hours. That should have been my first warning sign. Nothing moves that fast in construction. Nothing. Permits take weeks. Equipment orders take months. But Big Mountain had these suits ready to ship before Sinclair even called. They were waiting for us to need them. I read a terminal entry later, much later after everything fell apart. A worker at the Z43 Innovative Toxins plant wrote about the chemical leak at the Sierra Madre. He mentioned how the think tank execs were sending Sinclair the prototype chemical suits. Then, he wrote something that still haunts me. He said it looked like they were following up an experiment with another experiment. He talked about how the Big Mountain scientists were monitoring the Sierra Madre villa and examining the results. He didn't think Sinclair even knew what he'd really paid for. That worker compared us to the prisoners at Little Yangtze, called us guinea pigs, said maybe it would be merciful if war broke out to put an end to the chain of horrors. He knew. Someone at Big Mountain knew what was happening to us and they let it happen anyway. Maybe they felt guilty. Maybe they just didn't want to end up as test subjects themselves. The foreman distributed the hazmat suits to everyone working in the contaminated sections. I got mine on a Tuesday morning. The suit was bulkier than I expected, heavy. The material was thick and stiff, like wearing armor made of rubber. The respirator completely covered my face, and when I put the helmet on, I could barely see through the darkened faceplate. My breathing echoed inside the mask, loud, mechanical, like I was already becoming part of the machinery. We couldn't talk to each other while wearing the suits. The respirators were so thick that our voices came out muffled and distorted. We had to use sign language to communicate on the job. We looked like ghosts, wandering through the construction sites in our bulky protective gear, silent, inhuman. I wonder now if that was intentional too. Get us used to not being able to speak, get us used to being isolated inside our own bodies. The suit grew stiffer with each shift. At first, I thought I was just getting tired, that my muscles were sore from the physical labor. But it wasn't that. The suit itself was hardening. The joints became more difficult to move. The material seemed to be changing, responding to something in the air. The cloud was already working on us, even though the suits were supposed to protect against it. After my first full week in the contaminated zone, I tried to remove my suit. The locking mechanisms had corroded. Just 7 days of exposure to that rust-colored gas, and the metal clasps had fused together. I pulled at them, twisted them, but they wouldn't budge. My coworker Marcus grabbed one of the cosmic knives we used for cutting through the Saturnite alloy. Those knives could slice through a T-bone steak like it was hot butter. He cut through my suit locks like they were paper. When the suit fell open, I saw my skin underneath. It was changing, pale, almost translucent in places. And there were marks, burn patterns where the cloud had seeped through microscopic gaps in the suit seals. Despite all the protection, despite the rubber and metal and whatever else Big Mountain had used to build these things, the cloud was getting inside, slowly, methodically, like it was designed to. I went to the Villa clinic. The doctor examined the burns and didn't say anything for a long time. Finally, he told me to report any breathing difficulties, any pain, any changes in my skin. He told me to keep wearing the suit when I worked in contaminated areas. He didn't tell me what I already suspected, that the suit wasn't protecting me, it was slowly killing me, and there was no way out except to keep working until the job was done, or until I died, whichever came first. More workers started having problems. The suits weren't protecting anyone. We all had the skin burns. We all felt the stiffness in the suits growing worse. Some guys tried to refuse to wear them, but Sinclair said we had no choice. The cloud was spreading through the villa's ventilation system. Without the suits, we'd die in minutes. With them, we might last long enough to finish the construction. That's when I started reading the terminal entries, looking for information, trying to understand what was happening to us. I found files about Big Mountain's testing procedures, about how they used the Sierra Madre as a giant experiment. Sinclair thought he was paying for advanced technology, holograms, vending machines, auto docks. He had no idea that the Big Mountain executives had also placed experimental toxins in his resort. They were using all of us guests and workers and Sinclair himself as test subjects. The cloud wasn't an accident. It was created at the Z43 Innovative Toxins plant in the Big Mountain crater. Created deliberately, released deliberately. And the hazmat suits? They weren't a solution. They were part of the experiment. An experiment following up on an experiment, just like that terminal entry said. Big Mountain wanted to see what would happen when they exposed workers to a controlled amount of their toxin while trapping them inside protective equipment that was designed to fail. If you're still with me after hearing this, hit that like and subscribe button, because what I'm about to tell you gets so much darker than you can imagine. I started noticing changes in my body that had nothing to do with the skin burns. My lungs felt different when I breathed. Heavier, fuller, like they were filling with something that wasn't air. But I wasn't suffocating. If anything, I was breathing easier than before, even though that made no sense. My muscles stopped getting sore from wearing the heavy suit. The weight that had exhausted me during my first week now felt natural, comfortable, like the suit was becoming part of my body instead of something I wore over it. Have you ever realized too late that you were in a situation you couldn't escape from? How did it change you? Let me know in the comments. Marcus was the first to die, or at least the first to change in a way we couldn't ignore. He'd been working double shifts in the deepest parts of Puesta del Sol, trying to locate the source of the cloud leak. One morning, he didn't show up for the crew meeting. We found him in his bunk, still wearing his hazmat suit. His respirator was making this wet, gurgling sound. When we tried to help him up, his suit tore open where Marcus had been trying to claw his way out. Inside, his body had changed. His skin had turned a sickly gray-green color. His chest cavity was filled with pressurized pockets of gas that hissed when they were exposed to air. And he was still alive, still breathing, still moving. He grabbed my arm with a grip stronger than any human should have. His eyes behind the faceplate were terrified. He knew what was happening to him. He knew he wasn't human anymore, but he couldn't speak. The respirator had fused to his face. The medical team tried to help him. They really did, but every time they attempted to remove more of the suit, more gas leaked out. The pressure inside his body was so intense that they were afraid if they removed the suit completely, he would explode. They sealed him back up, put patches over the tears, and Marcus just lay there trapped inside his own body, unable to die but no longer able to live like a human being. That's when I understood the truth. The hazmat suits weren't poorly designed. They were perfectly engineered to fuse with their wearers, engineered to create regenerating laborers who would maintain the Sierra Madre for eternity without pay, without rest, without the ability to quit or rebel, or even realize they'd been enslaved forever. We were Big Mountain's masterpiece, a self-repairing, self-sustaining, immortal workforce. And Frederick Sinclair, the man who thought he was building a paradise for his lost love, had unknowingly funded the creation of a horror that would last for centuries. The bombs fell 3 weeks after Marcus changed. We were still trying to figure out how to help him when the air raid sirens went off. Most of the construction crew was in the villa when it happened. The casino guests were already inside for what was supposed to be the grand opening gala. Sinclair had invited celebrities, politicians, wealthy investors. Vera Keyes was there, the woman he'd built this entire fortress to protect. Dean Domino was performing in the Tampico Theater. It should have been a night of celebration. Instead, it became a tomb. The Sierra Madre's automated security systems activated when the bombs hit. The holograms that Sinclair had installed for protection went into emergency mode. They started killing everyone they detected as unauthorized personnel. The screams echoed through the ventilation system. We could hear the guests dying in the casino, while we workers huddled in the villa's service tunnels, wearing our cursed hazmat suits, listening to paradise turn into hell. Sinclair had programmed the security to protect Vera, but something had gone wrong. He'd changed the protocols in a fit of rage after discovering she'd betrayed him with Dean Domino. He'd turned his shelter into a trap, upgrading the holograms to ensure rescue would never come. Then, he'd regretted it, tried to reverse his changes, but it was too late. He died in the vault he'd built as a sanctuary, separated from Vera forever, while his automated systems slaughtered everyone above. The villa's infrastructure started failing within days. The cheap ventilation system that Sinclair's contractor Mr. Yesterday had installed to cut costs finally gave up completely. The cloud that had been contained in specific sections began seeping out of the damaged vents. It climbed through the streets like a living thing, filling the air, blotting out the sun. Within a few years, the entire Sierra Madre was drowning in that rust-colored mist. But we workers in our hazmat suits discovered something impossible. We could walk through the cloud. It didn't kill us anymore. We'd been exposed to it for so long, trapped inside our suits, with controlled doses leaking through the faulty seals that our bodies had adapted, or mutated, or been transformed. Whatever Big Mountain had done to us, it made us the only living things that could survive in the poisoned air. I say living, but I don't know if that's the right word. Dean Domino questioned whether being alive applied to us. He was right to question it. We don't sleep. We don't eat, though we could if we remembered how to use the vending machines. We don't age. We just exist, trapped between death and life, wandering the villa in our hazmat suits that have become our permanent bodies. The suit's internal systems fused with my circulatory system over the course of months. I felt it happening, felt the tubes and seals growing into my veins, connecting with my organs. My blood started mixing with whatever fluids the suit was generating. The respirator merged with my lungs, not connected to them, merged, became part of them. I breathe through the suit now, or the suit breathes through me. I'm not sure which is more accurate. I tried to remove my arm once, just the arm. I thought maybe I could escape piece by piece, cut myself out of this prison one limb at a time. I used one of the cosmic knives, the same kind Marcus had used, to cut me out of my suit that first time. The blade went through the rubber easily, but when I started to pull the suit away from my arm, I heard this hissing sound. Felt the pressure dropping inside the suit. My vision started to go dark. I was dying. The suit wasn't covering my body anymore. It was my body. Removing it meant dismemberment. Dismemberment meant the pressurized gas inside me would explosively decompress. I'd die instantly. So I sealed the cut with some of the sealant material we'd used during construction, patched myself up, and accepted that I was trapped inside this thing forever. The other workers changed too, some faster than I did, some slower, but we all ended up the same eventually, silent figures in hazmat suits, unable to speak, unable to remove our protective gear, unable to die. We became the ghost people, the locals, the permanent inhabitants of the Sierra Madre. 200 years later, we're still here, still patrolling, still maintaining the perimeter like we were trained to do. I hunt intruders now. Not because I'm hungry, not because I hate them, but because I can't stop. There's something in the suit, some embedded protocol that Big Mountain installed in the design. It whispers in my head constantly. Maintain perimeter security, capture unauthorized personnel, protect the Sierra Madre until relieved, but no one's coming to relieve us. No one's coming at all except treasure hunters who hear Vera's voice on the radio, luring them to their deaths with promises of beginning again. If you were transformed into something inhuman but retained your memories and consciousness, would you want someone to end your existence, or would you cling to any form of life no matter how terrible? Share your perspective in the comments. Father Elijah recognized what we were immediately. When he arrived at the Sierra Madre decades ago, he looked at us ghost people and understood our true purpose. He'd been to Little Yangtze, you see, the concentration camp at Big Mountain where Chinese prisoners were kept in explosive collars. Big Mountain used those prisoners as guinea pigs for experiments testing technologies that would later be deployed in places like the Sierra Madre. Elijah had studied those collars, reverse engineered them, perfected their operating frequencies. He saw the same principle in us. Total control through technology that can't be removed without killing the subject. The Little Yangtze prisoners wore collars that would explode if they left the perimeter. We wear suits that will cause explosive decompression if we try to escape them. Same concept, same cruelty, just different execution. Elijah used what he learned from us to create his own explosive collars, the ones he forced on the people he captured and brought to the Sierra Madre. He'd trap them, collar them, make them do his bidding with the threat of instant death. He understood that the collar wasn't just a weapon. It was a guarantee of obedience, a way to turn free people into slaves. That's what Big Mountain did to us. They turned us into slaves who don't even remember we were ever free. The hazmat suit is my collar. It's been my collar for 200 years. And unlike Elijah's victims who might escape or die, I'm trapped in mine forever, an immortal servant maintaining a dead casino for masters who probably don't even remember creating me. I remember being human. I remember my first day at the Sierra Madre construction site, how excited I was to have steady work with good pay. I remember my crew, the guys I worked with every day. Marcus, who loved baseball and would talk about the pre-war games for hours. Tommy, who had a wife and kid waiting for him back in the NCR territories. James, who played harmonica during lunch breaks. They're all ghost people now, too, wandering the villa hunting intruders, following protocols they don't even remember learning. Sometimes I see them and I want to call out to remind them who they were, but I can't speak. The respirator makes that impossible. Even if I could, they probably wouldn't remember. The longer you exist as a ghost person, the more your human memories fade. 200 years is a long time to hold on to who you used to be. I've lost most of my memories. I don't remember my childhood, don't remember where I'm from or if I had family, don't remember anything before the Sierra Madre, but I remember enough to know what was done to us. I remember enough to understand the horror. The Sierra Madre vending machines could sustain us indefinitely. They can fabricate food, water, medical supplies, anything we'd need. Sinclair's workers used them during construction, but we ghost people lost the memory of how to operate them decades ago. All we remember now is patrol and capture. Those are the only imperatives left in our deteriorating minds. The suit remembers our jobs even when we've forgotten everything else. We drag living victims into the cloud, not from predatory instinct, but from ancient programming. The suits need new hosts to spread Big Mountain's living dead workforce. It's reproduction in a sick way. We're trying to create more of us to expand the ranks of the Sierra Madre's eternal maintenance crew. We don't consciously know that's what we're doing. The suit knows. The suit always knows. If this story has kept you listening this far and you want more of these dark confessions from the wasteland, hit that like button. It really motivates me to create similar Fallout lores. I've watched the Sierra Madre for 2 centuries, watched it decay and crumble, watched the holograms flicker and fail, watched the cloud grow thicker, watched countless scavengers and treasure hunters arrive drawn by Vera's voice, by promises of gold and salvation. I've watched them all die or flee or become like me. The casino still stands above the villa, its vault still sealed. Sinclair's gold is still locked inside along with his skeletal remains and all his broken dreams. Vera's body sits in her suite in the executive level, still wearing her gala dress, her final words scrawled on the walls. Let go, but none of us can let go. Not Sinclair, who died trying to fix his mistakes. Not Vera, whose voice echoes forever on the emergency broadcast. Not us ghost people who maintain the perimeter of a paradise that was always meant to be a prison. Big Mountain succeeded beyond their wildest expectations. They created a self-sustaining test site that requires no supervision, no funding, no oversight. The ghost people guard it automatically. The cloud protects it from outsiders. The holograms kill anyone who gets too close to the casino. It's the perfect long-term experiment, and it cost them nothing but some prototype hazmat suits and a toxin they were testing anyway. Frederick Sinclair thought he was building a shelter for love, a place where he and Vera could begin again after the apocalypse. He had no idea he was funding a pilot program for immortal slave labor. Big Mountain executives probably laughed about it, convincing some lovesick businessman to pay for their human experimentation, getting him to build the containment facility himself, making him recruit the test subjects by offering them good wages. We were never construction workers. We were products, prototypes for a workforce that could be deployed anywhere. Imagine it, hazmat-suited workers who maintain nuclear facilities forever without complaint, soldiers who patrol contaminated zones without fear, miners who dig through radioactive ore without protective equipment because they've become one with their environment suits. That's what Big Mountain wanted to create, and they succeeded. I am what humanity becomes when you strip away mortality, agency, and purpose. I'm an eternal guard for a tomb filled with nothing but ghosts wearing other people's faces. Sometimes I remember I was human. Sometimes I forget to remember. Sometimes I realize I'm trapped between being dead and being alive, and that's the worst hell of all. The suit breathes for me, moves for me, thinks for me. I don't know anymore if I'm a man wearing a suit or a suit wearing the memory of a man. The worst part isn't the transformation. It isn't losing my humanity or being trapped in this suit or even the 200 years of wandering these poisoned streets. The worst part is remembering just enough to understand what I've lost, but not enough to hold on to who I was. It's like drowning in slow motion, watching the surface get further away while something pulls you deeper into darkness. I found a terminal in the Puesta del Sol switching station years ago, decades ago. Time doesn't mean much when you're immortal. The terminal had maintenance reports from before the war written by workers who wore these same suits. One entry described how they had to cut a man out of his suit with a cosmic knife because the locks had corroded shut. The writer mentioned how the gas had eroded the metal despite the sealant, how it got inside the suit anyway. Another entry talked about the ventilation system and how despite their best efforts, they could barely keep it functional. The writer knew it wouldn't last long after they left. He was right, it failed within years of the bombs falling, but by then, we didn't need ventilation. We'd become part of the cloud. We breathed it. We lived in it. We were sustained by the very toxin that was supposed to kill us. There was one entry that haunted me more than the others. A worker wrote about how his suit was growing stiff, how he was having trouble moving in it. He wrote about the strange green fluid he'd noticed leaking from the suit's vents. He wrote about how his breathing sounded different, mechanical and wet. He was describing his transformation and didn't even realize it. That entry ended mid-sentence. He never finished it. I wonder if he's still out here somewhere wandering the villa, having forgotten he ever tried to document what was happening to him. What do you think is worse, losing all your memories at once or slowly forgetting who you were over centuries? Drop your answer in the comments because this is the kind of philosophical nightmare the Fallout universe loves to explore. I've tried to count how many of us there are, how many ghost people patrol the Sierra Madre, but we don't stay in one place. We wander. Sometimes I see the same hazmat suit in different locations, and I can't tell if it's the same ghost person moving around or different ones that look identical. The suits have all corroded the same way. Rust and damage have made us indistinguishable from each other. Dean Domino, the singer who survived the grand opening gala, he claimed there were hordes of us living under the Sierra Madre streets. He compared it to a hornet's nest. He wasn't wrong. The service tunnels beneath the villa are full of ghost people. We cluster there when we're not patrolling. I don't know why. Maybe it's instinct. Maybe the suit's programming drives us to gather in the maintenance areas where we used to work. Maybe we're still trying to fix the ventilation system after 200 years, still trying to stop the cloud leak that transformed us. The tunnels are where we take our victims. When we capture intruders, we drag them down into the darkness beneath the streets. I don't know what happens to them after that. I participate in the captures, but I don't remember the aftermath. It's like that part of the process is blocked from my awareness. Maybe we're trying to convert them, put them in hazmat suits, and expose them to the cloud until they become like us. Maybe we're just following ancient security protocols that say intruders should be detained. Maybe the suit knows, and I don't. Dog the Nightkin that Father Elijah brought to the Sierra Madre, he was one of the few who could kill us permanently. He ate us, devoured our bodies, suit and all. He said we had pockets of pressurized gas inside us and tasted like plastic and copper. That's what we've become. Not flesh and blood anymore, but something artificial, something chemical. Living containers of the cloud held together by deteriorating hazmat suits. When dog bit through our suits, we died. The pressure released, the gas escaped, and whatever spark of consciousness remained in us went out. That's the only way to kill a ghost person. Dismemberment, explosives that tear the suit apart, disintegration, anything that ruptures the pressure seal. Otherwise, we just get back up. We regenerate. We keep moving. I've been torn apart and reassembled more times than I can count. Scavengers have shot me, stabbed me, blown me up with demolition charges. I've had limbs severed. I've had my torso ripped open. But as long as the suit's main seals stay intact, as long as the pressure doesn't fully release, I heal. My body generates new tissue. The cloud inside me fills the damaged areas. The suit patches itself. Within hours, I'm whole again, ready to resume patrol. It's not healing like a human heals. It's more like reconstitution, like the matter recombinators in the Sierra Madre vending machines. The same technology Sinclair purchased from Big Mountain. Those machines can break down Sierra Madre chips and reassemble them into food supplies ammunition. They work on a molecular level, rearranging base materials into new configurations. I think that's what's happening inside us. The cloud and the suit work together to recombine our damaged tissue, pulling materials from the air itself, from the toxins we breathe, from the green fluid that circulates through our bodies. We're living vending machines, self-fabricating constructs that maintain themselves indefinitely using the same technology Big Mountain developed for the casino. That's why we were created, not just to be guards or maintenance workers, but to prove the concept, to demonstrate that Big Mountain could create biological systems that functioned like their mechanical ones, eternal, self-sustaining, efficient. The Sierra Madre was never just a casino, it was a showcase, a demonstration of Big Mountain's capabilities for potential buyers. The holograms showed they could create security that never tired. The vending machines proved they could eliminate supply chains. The cloud demonstrated they could control environments. And we ghost people, we were the culmination of all those technologies, living proof that Big Mountain could engineer workers who would never quit, never age, never demand better conditions, never remember they were human enough to rebel. I wonder sometimes if other places got their own versions of us. If Big Mountain deployed similar experiments in their other test cities. They mentioned those in the terminals I accessed, places where they tested holograms, autodox toxins on unsuspecting Americans, little isolated towns that Big Mountain wound up and let go, then observed what happened. Were there other clouds, other hazmat suits that fused with their wearers, other populations transformed into immortal servants? Hopeville had a meteorological research project that went disastrously wrong. The divide was torn apart by something Big Mountain built. Maybe those places had their own ghost people equivalent. Different technologies, same principle. Turn humans into sustainable resources that maintain Big Mountain's experiments forever. Christine Royce understood this when she came to the Sierra Madre. She was a Brotherhood of Steel scribe sent to hunt down Father Elijah after he went rogue. She tracked him to Big Mountain first, to Little Yangtze, where he was experimenting on the ghoulified Chinese prisoners. She saw what he was doing with the explosive collars. She knew he'd learned it from Big Mountain. When she followed him to the Sierra Madre and saw us ghost people, she immediately recognized the same methodology. Technological control, bodies transformed into prisons, freedom stripped away by devices that can't be removed without causing death. Christine tried to stop Elijah at Little Yangtze but failed. He sent the collared ghoul prisoners at her like living bombs, detonating them to knock her unconscious. Then, Big Mountain's medical robots captured her and took her to the Y-17 medical facility where they performed experiments on her brain. They damaged her ability to read and write. They took away pieces of her mind. But they didn't take her understanding of what we ghost people represented. When Father Elijah finally forced her to the Sierra Madre with an explosive collar around her neck, she knew she was experiencing the same horror we'd lived through. Transformed into a tool, made into property through technology that's supposed to protect. The explosive collars Elijah used, the ones from Little Yangtze, they were prototype versions of our hazmat suits, less sophisticated, more obvious, but the same core concept. Big Mountain had been refining this technology for decades before the war. The collars could detonate if prisoners left the perimeter. Our suits decompress explosively if we try to remove them. The collar enslaved through threat of death. The suit enslaves through integration with life itself. Both are prisons. Both are unescapable. I've seen Father Elijah's victims wearing those collars, the people he captured and forced to help him break into the casino vault. They had that same look in their eyes that I remember from my early days, the growing realization that they're trapped, that there's no good choice, that they can either obey and maybe survive or resist and definitely die. It's the look of someone discovering they've already lost their freedom and didn't even notice it happening. Elijah wanted the Sierra Madre's treasures, the gold in the vault, the vending machine technology, the cloud that he could use as a weapon to cleanse the Mojave of everyone he hated. But more than that, he wanted the control. He wanted to create a nation built on the same principles Big Mountain used to create us: collars for compliance, holograms for defense, vending machines for resources, cloud for environmental control. He saw the Sierra Madre not as a tragedy, but as a blueprint. In a way, Elijah was the only person who truly understood what Sinclair had built. Not a shelter for love, but a machine for manufacturing obedience. Sinclair was just too blinded by his feelings for Vera to see it. He thought he was buying protection from Big Mountain. He didn't realize he was buying the means to transform people into property. The holograms still patrol the casino above the villa. They shimmer in and out of existence, deadly light constructs that kill anything unauthorized they detect. They were programmed with Vera's image. Some of them wear her face, speak with her voice. Sinclair wanted her protected by technology. Instead, her image became the executioner killing the guests she was supposed to entertain. Those holograms are like us in their own way, stuck in loops following ancient programming, unable to question their purpose. The difference is, they were never alive. They don't have memories of being human. They can't understand what they've lost because they never had anything to lose. Maybe that's better. Maybe it's worse. I can't decide anymore. I watch them sometimes from the villa below, watch the lights flicker through the casino windows, watch Vera's holographic ghost walk the executive suites, forever repeating her final words. Let go, let go, let go. It's the cruelest joke in the wasteland. The woman telling everyone to let go is trapped in an eternal recording, unable to let go herself. And we ghost people who hear her message every day, we can't let go either. We're all prisoners of the Sierra Madre, the dead, the transformed, the recorded, all of us caught in Frederick Sinclair's monument to the one thing he couldn't do: let go of Vera Keyes. The Sierra Madre was supposed to let people begin again. That was Sinclair's vision, a place where fortunes could be reversed, where the past could be escaped, where new lives could start. Instead, it became a place where nothing can ever begin again, because nothing can ever end. The cloud preserves everything. The suits sustain us forever. The holograms repeat their patrol routes eternally. The casino remains sealed and perfect, waiting for guests who will never arrive. We ghost people are the perfect metaphor for the Sierra Madre itself. We began as something human, something with potential and hope. We were transformed by forces we didn't understand into something that only exists to maintain what destroyed us. We can't move forward. We can't go back. We can only persist in this horrible present forever, maintaining the machinery of our own imprisonment. Big Mountain's executives probably never came back to check on their experiment. They didn't need to. The Sierra Madre was designed to be self-sustaining. We ghost people would guard it forever without supervision. The cloud would keep intruders away. If anyone did manage to get inside, we'd capture them or the holograms would kill them. The whole system was automated, perpetual, perfect. That's what I am, part of a perfect system. A successful experiment that will continue running long after everyone who created it has turned to dust. There are moments when the fog lifts from my mind, brief windows of clarity where I remember everything. My name, my life before the Sierra Madre, the feeling of sunlight on skin that wasn't covered by rubber and metal. Those moments are the worst because they remind me of what Big Mountain stole from me. Then the fog returns and I forget again. But even in the forgetting, something deep inside knows what was lost. I've stopped trying to resist the suit's programming. Resistance is agony. When I fight against the impulse to patrol, when I try to stand still and just exist without purpose, the suit constricts. It tightens around my chest until I can't breathe. It floods my system with pain signals. It forces my limbs to move whether I want them to or not. The suit won't let me be still, won't let me rest. It was designed to keep its wearer functional and active indefinitely. So, I patrol, I hunt, I follow the ancient imperatives burned into whatever remains of my brain, and in a twisted way, it's easier to obey. The pain stops, the confusion fades. When I'm patrolling, when I'm doing what the suit wants me to do, there's almost peace. It's the peace of total surrender, the peace of accepting that I'm no longer a person with choices. I'm a function, a purpose, a tool. The few treasure hunters who've made it deep into the villa before dying or fleeing, they've left notes behind, written warnings for whoever comes after them. I've read those notes during my clearer moments. They call us monsters, zombies, undead horrors. They don't understand what we really are. We're not monsters, we're victims. We're the proof that the worst horrors don't come from mutation or radiation, but from human ingenuity turned toward cruelty. One note described watching a ghost person get back up after being shot multiple times. The writer called it unnatural evil, but there's nothing supernatural about us. We're just science, bad science applied to human bodies without consent. The same science that created power armor created our suits. The same technology that made stimpaks regenerate tissue makes our bodies repair themselves. The same genius that split the atom and built the robots and invented the Pip-Boy, that same genius looked at human beings and decided to turn us into immortal slaves. That's the real horror of the wasteland, not the radiation or the mutants or the raiders. The horror is what the old world was willing to do to people in the name of progress. Big Mountain didn't create us out of necessity. They created us because they could, because nobody stopped them, because in a world racing toward nuclear annihilation, ethics became a luxury nobody could afford. I think about the Big Mountain scientists sometimes, the ones who designed the cloud and the hazmat suits and the whole Sierra Madre experiment. Did they know we'd still be here 200 years later? Did they care? Or were we just data points in a research proposal, acceptable losses in pursuit of breakthrough technology? There's a holotape in the Z43 Innovative Toxins plant. I never accessed it personally, but I overheard workers talking about it before the bombs fell. A scientist expressing discomfort about what was being done at the Sierra Madre, comparing us to the Little Yangtze prisoners, saying maybe it would be merciful if the war ended everything. That scientist knew. Someone at Big Mountain understood that what they were doing was monstrous, but understanding didn't stop them. Discomfort didn't save us. The worst experiments are always approved by people who know exactly what they're doing. Evil doesn't require ignorance. Sometimes it just requires a signature on the right form and a willingness to classify human suffering as acceptable research parameters. Dean Domino survived the grand opening gala, and he's still alive in the Sierra Madre somewhere, 200 years old and still performing his lounge singer routine for an audience of ghosts and holograms. He's trapped here just like we are, but in a different way. He's trapped by greed and pride and the obsession with the heist he never got to complete. We ghost people are trapped by our suits. Dean is trapped by his own personality. I wonder which prison is worse, the one you can see and feel constricting around you, or the one built from your own character flaws that you carry everywhere you go. Dean can walk away from the Sierra Madre anytime. His body is still his own. But he won't leave because leaving means admitting defeat, means accepting that he lost to Sinclair even though Sinclair died 2 centuries ago. So Dean stays performing for empty rooms, scheming about gold he'll never spend, convinced that someday he'll win a game that ended before the first card was dealt. At least, we ghost people have the excuse that we're literally programmed to stay. Dean has no excuse except himself. Maybe that makes him more pathetic than us, or maybe it makes him more human. I can't tell anymore. The casino vault is still sealed, 37 gold bars sitting on a table untouched, guarded by technology and death traps, and the skeletal remains of Frederick Sinclair. All that wealth, all that treasure that lured so many people to their doom, and it's worthless. Gold doesn't matter in a world where you can't leave to spend it. Riches mean nothing when the price of claiming them is becoming another ghost person wandering the villa forever. That's the Sierra Madre's final lesson, the one Sinclair learned too late, and Vera tried to teach him with her dying words. You have to let go. Let go of the past, let go of treasures, let go of obsessions, let go of the idea that you can hold on to anything forever. Everything ends eventually, everything except us ghost people. We're the ones who can never let go because we're trapped in a present that never progresses into future. Father Elijah wanted to use the cloud as a weapon against the new California Republic. He wanted to blanket the Mojave in that rust-colored mist, kill everyone he hated, and rebuild civilization using Sierra Madre technology. He saw us ghost people and thought we were the future, an army of unkillable soldiers, a workforce that never tired, the foundation for a nation built on total control. He was wrong about one thing though. We're not the future, we're the past. We're what the old world became in its final days. Humans transformed into tools, people stripped of agency and turned into resources. The same thinking that created us created the war that destroyed everything. The belief that human beings are problems to be solved through technology rather than individuals deserving of dignity and choice. If this confession meant something to you, leave a like. It's the only way I know you liked the video. Big Mountain succeeded in creating us, but they failed to understand what that success meant. They proved they could make immortal servants. They proved they could fuse biology with technology. They proved they could trap consciousness inside regenerating bodies that couldn't escape. But proving you can do something doesn't mean you should. The scientists at Big Mountain were so focused on whether they could create us that they never stopped to ask whether they should. Now here we are, 200 years later, still patrolling the villa, still hunting intruders, still maintaining the Sierra Madre for masters who are long dead. We're the last employees of a company that doesn't exist anymore, working for paychecks that will never come, maintaining a casino that will never open, following orders that nobody remembers giving. In the darkest hours when the cloud is thickest and the holograms flicker in the casino above, I wonder if this is hell, not the Christian hell of fire and demons, but something worse, a hell of perpetual existence without purpose, a hell of remembering just enough to know you've forgotten everything that mattered, a hell of being unable to die but equally unable to live. The suit keeps me breathing, keeps my body functioning, keeps me moving through the streets in an endless patrol. But I'm not alive. Not in any way that matters. I'm a recording like Vera's voice on the emergency broadcast. I'm a hologram like the security systems that killed the guests. I'm a machine like the vending units and auto docks. I just used to be human, and some fragment of that humanity remains trapped inside this prison, screaming silently for 2 centuries. Every ghost person you see in the Sierra Madre is someone like me, a construction worker who took a job that seemed too good to be true, a maintenance technician trying to fix a ventilation system, a security guard protecting a casino, a cleaning crew member, an electrician, a plumber, regular people doing regular work who got caught in Big Mountain's experiment and never escaped. We had names, we had families, we had dreams and fears and favorite foods and songs we hummed while we worked. We were human. And then Big Mountain put us in suits that were designed to steal our humanity so slowly we didn't realize it was happening until it was too late to resist. That's the genius of the hazmat suit design. If they'd trapped us all at once, we would have fought back. If they'd told us up front what would happen, we never would have put the suits on. But they did it gradually. First, the suits were just protective equipment. Then the locks corroded and we needed help getting out. Then our skin started changing, but we could still remove the suits with knives. Then the internal systems began fusing and removal became dangerous. Then finally removal became impossible. By the time we understood what was happening, we were already transformed, already trapped, already ghost people. And Big Mountain knew this would happen. They designed it to happen. The corroding locks weren't a flaw. The leaking seals weren't poor craftsmanship. The fusion of suit and body wasn't an accident. Every stage was planned. Every step was intentional. We were being manufactured into products, and we didn't realize we were on the assembly line until we'd reached the end. I don't know how many treasure hunters have come to the Sierra Madre since the bombs fell. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Most died in the cloud. Some got killed by holograms. A few made it far enough to encounter us ghost people before we dragged them into the tunnels. None of them understood what they were looking at when they saw us. They saw monsters. They saw zombies. They saw enemies to fight or avoid. They never saw the warning we represented. They never understood that we were what greed and obsession and the inability to let go could turn you into. They came seeking treasure and found only death or transformation. The Sierra Madre's promise of beginning again was always a lie. You can't begin again if you won't let go of what you're trying to escape. The sun never shines in the Sierra Madre anymore. The cloud is too thick. It's been 200 years since I've seen daylight. 200 years of rust-colored mist and flickering holograms and the endless patrol through streets that were supposed to be paradise. Sometimes I try to remember what the sun looked like, what blue sky felt like, what it meant to be warm. But those memories are fading like everything else. Soon I'll forget I was ever human at all. The suit will have erased the last fragments of who I was. I'll be nothing but function and programming, just another ghost person wandering the villa with no memory of the man who died so I could exist. Maybe that's a mercy. Maybe forgetting is the only escape left to me. But until that day comes, I remember enough to tell you this story. I remember enough to warn you. The Sierra Madre isn't a legend. It's not a myth. It's real. And so are we ghost people. We're the proof that the worst monsters aren't created by radiation or mutation. They're created by human beings who decide that other human beings are acceptable test subjects. We're Big Mountain's legacy, their living monument, their eternal experiment, and we'll be here forever trapped in our suits, wandering the poisoned streets, maintaining the casino that destroyed us. Long after you're dead, long after the wasteland has changed again, long after everything you know has turned to dust, we'll still be here, still patrolling, still hunting, still trapped between death and life, in a hell made of rubber and metal and rust-colored mist. Frederick Sinclair wanted to build paradise. Big Mountain wanted to build products. They both succeeded. This is paradise and product combined. An eternal prison where the guards are also the prisoners, where the maintenance crew maintains their own cage, where nobody wins and nobody loses because the game never ends. Let go, Vera said. Let go, but we can't. We never could. That's what makes us ghost people. We're everyone who couldn't let go, everyone who held on too long, everyone who was transformed by their inability to release the past. We're the warning nobody heeded, the price nobody wanted to pay, the future that the old world built with its arrogance and cruelty and belief that science without ethics could solve every problem. I am a ghost person. I was human once. And somewhere deep inside this suit, buried under 200 years of forgetting and programming and chemical transformation, a fragment of that human still exists, still remembers, still mourns what was lost, still warns you not to make the same mistakes we did, still patrols the Sierra Madre forever.